Welcome to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. This month is for the ladies. In honor of Women's History Month, during the month of March, we're highlighting 5 boss ladies who are paving the way and shining in their businesses. So don't worry, fellas, we got y'all in May. So to start the series, this week we are discussing how to get your finances in order with Dominique Broadway, an award-winning financial planner, personal finance coach, speaker, financial expert, entrepreneur, and founder of the companies Finances Demystified and the Social Money Tour. Dominique has transformed personal finance management into a social experience by making it engaging, trendy, and easy to understand. So I invited Dominique on the show because in entrepreneurship, I feel we don't discuss personal finances enough and how it affects our life and businesses. So a few months back, I was on a session with my own financial advisor and we were looking through my statements and I realized I spent a lot of money on eating out. So I decided to challenge myself for the month of January to no eating out, and it actually wasn't that bad at all. As a result, I better manage my time in planning and preparing my meals. I cut out unnecessary coffee dates and brunches that were eating up both time and money. And I also felt more energized than ever because I knew what was going into my body because I was preparing it. My eating out budget was instead put towards investing in an email marketing course to help me grow my business and eventually attain financial freedom. So funny thing is, since I've started back going out and eating out gradually, I find myself constantly criticizing the proportions that I get in the restaurant. Like just yesterday, me paying $21 for a shrimp and grits dish, which included about 5 shrimp and a cup of grits yesterday for a friend's brunch. And I always think, let's just suck it up for the cause. But anywho, enough ranting. Let's dive into this episode where we discuss financial freedom, accurately charging what you're worth, and the importance of saving. Well, Dominique, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited about today's episode.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm definitely excited to be here.
Of course. So before we get started, I wanted you to tell my listeners who don't yet know you a little bit about your story and how you got where you are today and what it is exactly that you do in your business.
Yeah. So basically, I work with. Let's get started from the beginning. So I'm an award-winning financial planner, personal finance expert, and basically the founder of Finances Demystified. So we work with millennials, entrepreneurs, and creatives, helping them to understand their finances and helping them to demystify them. So we can bring all their dreams to reality. So essentially what that means is we work with, just amazing people, like I said, millennials, entrepreneurs, and creatives, helping them to understand their finances. We do this via like online courses, digital products, one-on-one planning, one-on-one coaching, working with major brands to help make finance fun, but also through a lot of speaking engagements, events, and things of that nature. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. But I guess as far as how I got started, I guess my background is I was a financial planner and stockbroker for high net worth clients. So I worked with clients that had $10, $20 million in investable assets, meaning that's just like how much they had sitting in their savings account or investing account. Yeah, and basically doing financial planning, wealth management, and trading for them. And after being there, for a couple years and, just realizing that I had access to a bunch of financial information that I guess most people didn't. I bought my first house at 22. Like I was able to save tons of money by 25 and looking around and saying that the people that I graduated with are just my peers just weren't accomplishing the things that I was accomplishing. So I just kind of quit my job and, realized that I needed to help people that didn't have millions and millions of dollars, but still wanted access to that information. So I would have my friends come to me like, oh, Dominique, what are you doing differently? Can I become a client of your company? And when I was working at these major firms, you had to have at least $1 million or on the low end, $500,000 to become a client. And I just thought that was crazy. So that's really why, or I guess what I'm doing now. And also like how I made the decision to start.
Wow. So we definitely have to get into all of those things. Buying a house at 22, all of those things. So I'm excited about today's conversation. Thank you so much for sharing that and just your journey. I think that's important for people to know. That's why I'm excited about today's topic, which is getting your finances in order. And so we can be able to do what you have been able to do. So I'm excited. So when we talk about financial freedom and getting your finances in order, what does
Mm.
that mean to you? And I know you mentioned that you work with entrepreneurs. So what does it matter for an entrepreneur to have their finances in order? And what are some things that they should be paying attention to when it comes to their personal finances?
I mean, so for me, I guess the first question as far as like financial freedom, sometimes people think financial freedom is like, oh, you just don't have to work at all and you can like lay on the beach all day. And for me, when I think about financial freedom, it's actually more about the freedom part, the freedom that comes with having your finances in order, not having to stress about your finances and being able to really live life on your own terms. If that means even, working for a nonprofit or whatever it may be, like wherever it is, you know what I mean? Just being able to do something that you want to do on a daily basis and being completely in control of your life. But when it comes to entrepreneurs, it's important for everyone to be on top of their finances, but especially for entrepreneurs, because as as an entrepreneur, you can have up and down months. You just have to, you can't successfully create a business when you're constantly stressing about where money's coming from. And so a lot of entrepreneurs mess up because one, they don't take the time that's necessary to make sure they're charging and pricing their services at the right amount so that they can, meet their financial obligations. But at the same time, like just, giving so much away of their of their expertise and like I said, not charging enough to the point where they put themselves in a bad financial spot. And like I said, you can't create when you're stressing about finances. It doesn't matter what you do. And so I think that's kind of like the reason why, a lot of entrepreneurs really, they need to make the financial part of their business a priority. So a lot of people create these passion businesses, which is great. But the problem with passion businesses is sometimes they don't think of it as a business. They think of it as a passion, as a hobby. And so they don't take time to actually treat it as a business and make sure they're hitting their revenue goals every month and make sure they're having a marketing strategy in place and, having monthly revenue goals and weekly revenue goals and daily revenue goals and all these different things. So yeah.
Definitely a great point. Do you, in your experience, have you had, or do you have any examples of times that you've had people come to you with these entrepreneurial goals or just goals in general in some ways that you've been able to help them turn their situation around?
So I guess entrepreneurs specifically, I think the biggest thing is with entrepreneurs. I had a client was, very interesting because she was, the owner of like $1 million a year, hair beauty company or whatever. And, she had employees, the company was making money, like it was doing well, but she completely neglected her personal finances. So her credit was horrible. She had no money saved. It was just weird because it's like you have this thriving business, like thriving,
Right.
but you've completely ignored your personal finances. And it's no knock on her because as an entrepreneur, I've been there before. I get it. You get so engulfed in your business that you do sometimes neglect your entire personal life, which does include your personal finances. And so, like for this person, it was us like sitting down, like getting her credit back, her personal credit back in place, and
Right.
getting a savings plan in place, making sure she started back paying herself so that she could be where she wanted to be. It's like, it doesn't matter how much money you're making if your finances are messed up and you're not managing it well, even though you built this to $1 million company, even when you hit 2 and 3 million, you're still going to be in the same place. Right. And so, you see that a lot with entrepreneurs, and that's like an extreme case. But I mean, you also see in other cases where people may not have built their company to that like magnitude, but they're just struggling. You know what I mean? They're just struggling with their
Right.
personal finances because it can be hard to focus on both. So, I mean, I've seen just like so many different cases and so many different types of entrepreneurs. And there's also some people where I've had to tell them like, you need to stop, babe. Like, you need to go back to work. Like, if this ain't for you, because it's entrepreneurship is not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks
now you need to go back to work.
Yeah, like you just don't have it. And it's like, if you're scared to sell and it's certain traits that an entrepreneur has that, if you don't have them, the ability to constantly promote yourself, constantly sell, to create, it ain't going to work. It's just not going to work because you're not even going to be able to get to the point where you can hire somebody to help you. And so it's like making sure sometimes people just got to stop. It's like, look, you're hurting yourself. Like, just stop. So, I mean, I've definitely made some people go back to work. Like, just get you a job, do this on the side. Because this is not, you put everybody in danger. So, but yeah, I think it's kind of seeing both ends of the spectrum has been really interesting.
Right. I mean, you mentioned so many great points. One of them, in the beginning, you stated that the company you was working for, they only work with these certain amount of clients or these certain clients that have this amount of money. So I often see people say, well, people aren't going to pay for my services. And you mentioned, making sure you're pricing your services high. So what about those people who are, keeping in mind that if you have something great, people will pay? Or what advice do you have for someone who is scared about, pricing their services and thinking that no one would come?
Well, that's a confidence thing. That comes down to confidence. I think, it comes down to confidence in yourself and also confidence in the service that you're going to provide. No one's going to buy from anyone that sells to them weakly, if that makes sense, like from a weak manner. So example, if you come to me and you're like, hey, Dominique, like, I want to get my finances together, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess I'll charge you $50, or something like that. And I think I can help you or something like that. Versus if you come to me and I'm like, okay, what we're going to do is, for $500, I'm going to help you reach this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal. You're like, yeah, I totally will pay $500 and I'm confident that you can help me reach this. And you've explained to me confidently what you're going to do. And so another thing I noticed is that people are scared to charge prices because, sometimes they're broke. And if they're broke, they're like, well, I would never pay for this. So who else can I get to pay for this? You know what I'm saying? So that's a thing too. But another thing that I believe too is that when it comes down to people being scared of people not buying, it's like people going to spend money or whatever the hell they want to spend money on, right? So, I mean, I've had clients who didn't want to hire me that I see on Facebook that they're buying Beyonce tickets. So, it's like there's, you know what I mean? So it's like, where are your priorities at? Like your finances are still screwed up. But now you've helped support Beyonce and Blue Ivy. That's great because they definitely needed it. So, it's things like that where it's like people are going to spend money on what they want to spend money on. You know what I mean? So I think that if you keep that in mind and you can sell yourself confidently, then you should be good to
go. That is good. That was good. And another thing that you mentioned is the fact that people going into debt for their businesses. So would you say that, of course, you have to think about monetizing? Would it be important for people to know and look at their situation and say, I can't afford to buy 1,000 books, or should they sell it first and then pay for it later, or just be realistic with what they start out the gate with so that they aren't going into debt?
I think as an entrepreneur, so the most successful entrepreneurs are they're resourceful, right? When I create products, even if it's a digital product, believe it or not, I will sell it before I create it because I'm not going to waste time making something that people aren't going to purchase, right? And so it's a similar thing with a lot of entrepreneurs. They put all their blood, sweat, tears, money into something, and then no one buys it. And now they're stuck with all these whatchamacallits, right? And so for me, even now, and I'm in a healthy financial state, to this day, I still will pre-sell most things before I actually put the money to invest into it. I'll invest and put to flesh it out and create that sales page. But I think more entrepreneurs need to be more resourceful. Even like, let's say the book that I have, I've never had to purchase 1,000 books. All my books are purchased they're on demand. So when someone buys it, then it gets printed. So I think little things like that, where entrepreneurs need to be more resourceful instead of just feeling like they have to go, invest all their money into something, because especially nowadays with technology, like you basically don't have to hold any product at all. You know what I mean? You can have everything shipped on demand, printed on demand. And so that right there is really cool, because that means that for a lot of entrepreneurs, you don't have to come out with as much cash on the front to get things started. So I think that entrepreneurs need to be a lot more resourceful, and also frugal when it comes to starting their businesses, instead of just taking whatever, cash they have and throwing it into something that they haven't even tested. They have no, a minimum viable product. They have nothing that will really prove that this is going to work.
I agree. And I mean, it's so important. I've been seeing that a lot lately, as I've been doing my research on, this whole idea around creating something of value, but also I think making money while you sleep as well. And a lot of people, are saying creating that product, after that people are going to be there. So that's a great point. And one thing is, can you talk about paying yourself first? Mm-hmm. What does that look like?
Well, I think there's two parts, right? So let's say if you have a regular, a traditional 9-to-5 or W-2 income, paying yourself first is really like saving first. You know what I mean? Saving or paying yourself and making sure you're taking care of yourself before you take care of, your mortgage and rent and all those other things. That doesn't mean you pay yourself $1,000 and now you can't pay your rent. But it's making sure that you're taking, at least 10% or something and setting it aside for yourself, because essentially once you pay all your bills, for a lot of people, there's nothing left, right? And so for an entrepreneur, it's a similar thing where you need to have some sort of structure in place where you can, the money comes in, maybe a certain percentage goes straight to, marketing expenses. Another percent goes to paying you, and you have to make it really a priority to save and put money aside. And that's why there's studies out that the average person cannot handle a $500 emergency. That's insane. Like, that's ridiculous. And I think it's like 80% of Americans, something crazy. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's like the average American can't afford a $500 emergency. And a $500 emergency, especially nowadays, that's just like one tire going out. You know what I'm saying? Like literally one tire can go out and your whole finances is just got to throw all the finances away. Like your whole finances is destroyed. Now you can't pay your rent, things of that nature. And so it's like really taking the time, when you pay yourself first, to make sure you can cover those types of things so it doesn't destroy your finances.
So true. So true. And, you've been able to accomplish a lot, and I want to talk a little bit about how you've used some of these things that you share with other people personally. So if you could, share some ways that you took control of your finances, and also how were you able to buy a home at 22 and, step out onto entrepreneurship full time?
Yeah. So, I guess I was able to buy my home at 22. Buying a house really isn't hard, just FYI. Like, I don't know why people act like it's hard. It's really not.
Talk about it.
Yeah, all you need, honestly, to buy a house is decent credit, not even amazing credit, just decent credit, and a job, some income. That's it. And so that's all I had. I had good credit and I had a job. And so, I had told myself and promised myself that I wasn't going to move back home after college. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents, like my mom and my dad. They're both great, and they live separately, but I didn't mind living with them. They were awesome. But I knew that I wanted to start building wealth early. And I had realized at a young age, there was two ways you could build wealth: through the stock market. Well, how the wealthy were getting wealthier, through the stock market and through real estate. So I got into the stock market early. I had to kind of teach myself. But then I decided I immediately want to get into real estate. So I went to Bowie State University. It's a small historically Black college in Bowie, Maryland. And yes, all day. And I I worked most of the time I was in college just because I thought school was super boring. And I didn't have the highest GPA when I graduated. It was like a 2.3. It was low, but I just felt like school was boring. The stuff that they were teaching us wasn't great. So while I was in school, I worked part-time, saved up some money there, and, finagled my way into a internship at one of the top investment firms in the world. Even though my low GPA, I'm just a smooth talker. And which they offered me a full-time job after that. It took me actually an extra semester to graduate because I told you I ain't have the best GPA. And so I had, school ends in May, and that summer I started working full time, because I only had one more class to finish in my last semester. Started working full time that summer and kind of used that to apply for a mortgage. I went through a first time home buyers program. They had like a 0 down type of thing. And that was it. And I bought the house. Like I said, literally all I needed was good credit and the proof of income. And that was it. And so I commuted from my new condo to my last class for the last semester, and graduated in the winter. And that was it. That was really all I did. Like I said, that's not super complex. It's about being resourceful. And as an entrepreneur, and as a human, I've just always been super resourceful, always. And so I was like, if I want to do something, I need to figure out how I can make it happen. And that's really it. So that's how I bought my first house so early on. And then, by buying a house at 22, I just sold the condo in December, but I had that house for 10 years. And so that really gave me the flexibility to kind of make some moves, to be able to feel comfortable to quit my job, because my salary was based on my mortgage was based on my 22-year-old salary, and I wasn't making that same amount by the time I hit, 28 or even 25. And so I always kept my expenses low. I didn't go out and I bought a new car after my other car caught on fire. But anyway, I didn't buy the most expensive car in the world. I got something I could afford. It was a BMW, but it was a BMW that I could afford. It was used. You know what I'm saying? I did what I could afford to do. I didn't try to keep up with everybody else. And so being able to keep my expenses low, also being able to save consistently after college gave me the, as they say, FU money to quit my job. Even still, with all that money saved, I still went broke when I started after, about a year and a half in after starting my company. So, things are never, they're never perfect. And having to bounce back from that was a whole nother lesson, but it's something that everyone can do. It's really not that hard. It's just that a lot of people have such negative relationships with money, or they've seen their family members. We all have that one cousin who every year is buying a house, every single year. It's oh girl, I'm buying a house this year. And I'm like, I'm not going to be that cousin. And so it's usually just the negative blocks that they put around money.
So when you mentioned the fact that I forgot to mention when it comes to savings and entrepreneurs not being prepared, I was recently at a financial workshop, and one of the ladies mentioned that a gentleman, he had this $1 million business. He was in his late, early around retirement. And it got to the point where he was offered to sell his business. Someone had bought his business. But, he was throughout this time, living this lavish lifestyle. And he said that, someone has bought my business, but about 2 years from now, I'm going to have to go back into the workforce. And I thought, not preparing, what? Do you see that happen often?
Yeah, you do. Especially, especially with I have a lot of clients with bloggers, right? Or Instagram influencers. And, for a lot of those people, the money comes quick and it comes often. And then sometimes you just have a downtime. And so they're not prepared for any downtime whatsoever. But I think outside of even just entrepreneurs, people in general, they're not preparing for next month. You know what I mean? They're just not even thinking about saving or putting money aside. And so sadly, that's actually very common. And that's the one thing I pat myself, not pop my own collar, but the one thing that I pat myself in the back for all the time is that I never let my expenses get out of control. I never, with every increase in pay, I didn't, buy, go from a BMW to a Range Rover to a Porsche to a Maserati.
Right.
Even if I could afford it, I didn't do that. I still have the same 2008 BMW, and it's getting sick now, and I need to buy a new car. And I'm like, oh, I can afford to buy the car I want. But I'm just like, I'd much rather have that money in my savings account or my investment account versus riding around in a car that's going to depreciate in value as soon as you take it off the lot. And so that's what people mess up, is they continuously upgrade their lifestyle to meet their new pay. And that's why someone like this gentleman, he's always clearly upgrading his lifestyle to meet whatever he was making. And then by the time, he comes to sell, which is great, he still has to work because he never put anything aside. And so I think that's sadly very common. Yeah. And that's also, how you see people joke sometimes, like you walk into Walmart, and I don't even like Walmart, but you go to Walmart and like you see the old lady who's like giving stickers out the front door. Like, she ain't doing that for kicks and giggles. She's doing that because she needs money. Like, that's, so.
That's crazy. And I think about that too. It's like, especially when we get there and, when people talk about retirement, all of these things that are available now may not be available when we get there. So another thing that you mentioned is when people upgrade their lifestyle based on their paycheck. And I think we live in a society now where people are constantly seeing other people's lives, and they're going out and doing things and getting themselves into debt, kind of like FOMO of finances. So how does someone, make sure that they're saying no to themselves or being realistic with what they have to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of exactly what you said. You just need to be realistic. Like, and we all know what we can and cannot afford. Like, if you going on a trip this month is gonna put you behind in your bills next month, why are you going on a trip? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I know people who literally do that. And so, at the end of the day, you know what you can and what you cannot afford. And I know that whole, oh gosh, when it was like YOLO, you only live once, that messed up a lot of people's finances. Because you only live once, but you still need to live through the following week, right? And so it's like, and so people are like literally going broke, oh, I only live once. Got it. Totally get it. But, you need to put money aside. And so, I think at the end of the day, people need to be realistic about their financial situation. And, I talk to clients all the time, and it doesn't matter their ethnicity, their educational background. A lot of times people feel the same way. They're like, I feel like I'm making the same amount of money as my friend, but my friend is always able to go on trips and do this and this and this. And I'm like, trust me, you don't know their financial situation. Right. I've had friends who've gone on trips with me and they really couldn't swing it, and I had to cover their whole trip, and they had to pay me back over 3 months. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. but it's one of the things. But it's like, but they're there though. You know what I'm saying? And so but no one knows what's really going on behind the scenes. So that's why people need to stop comparing themselves to other people. All it does is screw up your finances, because you don't know their whole situation. You don't know. You don't know.
Definitely. So, which leads into the next point. Let's talk about some action steps to take control of your finances. So, I know, we talk about loans, we talk about debt, we talk about savings, all of these things. And can you give some tips on budgeting? So say, for instance, like myself, I've been really big into finance. And one of the things I recently did is I went and took out I have 3 savings accounts. So when you talk about the FU fund, I have that. I have the travel account because that's important to me. But I also have just a regular emergency account. And I felt like that was important for me to have, taking control of my money. So what about those people who are trying to save, trying to, determine if they should save or pay off their debt? Like, some people are dealing with student loans and all of these things. What do you think about that?
So I think my philosophy is always you need to do both. Like, you need to save, but you also need to focus on paying off debt. And it can be done. It's not something that's impossible. But, cash is king. And you need to, have your cash on hand. So if you can kind of figure out a strategy where you can, pay off your debt, but at the same time save them, really important. Because a lot of times what people will do is especially if you, I guess about 2009 or so, like people were literally paying off their credit cards and things of that nature and using their credit cards as an emergency fund. And then, credit card companies were literally slashing people's credit limits. And so now you done took all your cash and put it on this credit card. You know what I'm saying? And thinking that you're going to be able to, leverage this in case of emergency, and now you can't. So that's why I feel like cash is king. So if you can sit down and be realistic with yourself and create a budget, it don't have to be a fancy budget. You don't even need the fanciest spreadsheets in the world. You can just write down your income, write down your expenses, and subtract your expenses from your income and see what's left over, and just kind of create a set amount that you're going to save every month, but also a set amount that you're willing to commit to your debts every month. But make sure that they're both a priority.
Right. I'm sitting here taking notes because I think that's important. Getting back to the pen and paper if you need to, or the envelope system, all of these things. So, Dominique, what do you think are some things that the wealthy are doing differently?
Oh, so much. So the wealthy, they keep their expenses very low. Very, very low. They don't waste a lot of money on things, right? There's some people that do. They're into their toys, but honestly, most of the wealthy people I've seen, like they would come into our office with like a T-shirt on from a concert. And clearly the concert was 6 years ago because it would say like, 2001 or whatever, and they may not, sometimes they may have a fancy car, sometimes they don't. But also, too, you look at like remember Steve Jobs used to wear that black T-shirt every single day. Obviously, he had multiple T-shirts, but you know what I'm saying. And it's just those things where you see the wealthy, like they don't try to keep up with anyone else. They always have tons of life insurance because we all know that's the easiest way to pass wealth from generation to generation tax-free. They understand they're never trying to do a get rich quick scheme. They understand that when you invest, you put it in, you forget about it, and you let it ride out. You don't check it every day. You're not looking for the next quick hit. And at the end of the day, they live within their means. And if there's ever a time when they feel like they're not living within their means, they cut. They cut something, or they go out and figure out a way to make more money. And that's really all you need to do to be wealthy, truly. So I think those are just some of the maybe top 3 or 4 things that I feel like that the wealthy are doing that the average person is not. And the biggest thing, like I said, is just living within their means. Most people are not living within their means at all.
So how do you think the relation between living within your means and goals that people have set, or goal setting as well? What do you think the relation is between those things, like financially living within your means, but also setting these financial goals?
What do you mean the relation? Like,
well, for instance, so say if you have a vision board and you're, or I don't want to say I can't do that, or, okay, well, what about, I work hard for this and I want to enjoy what I'm working for, type things, or, just people not enjoying what they're working for?
Well, I think, I think you have to, I don't know. I think for a lot of people, their priorities are just off, right? And I think if you're in a situation, first things first, I think if you're living a life now and you feel like you can't necessarily enjoy it, you need to stop and really think about what makes you happy. What are the things you enjoy most? But I think outside of that, if it's a financial situation where you feel like you can't enjoy, look for ways to make more money. I think a lot of times people will talk too much about cutting back and not necessarily about ways to increase your income. So look for ways to increase your income. But in addition to that, I think, I guess in addition to kind of creating your income, I would say, increasing your income is, I think I forgot the question. What was the question again? Oh, the relation. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I think in addition to that, people need to, like I said, cut back. Well, when I say cut back, so look for ways to increase your income, but also look for ways that you may be wasting money in other areas. So there's a lot of times people who are like, oh, I love to travel. I never have enough money to travel. But, you go and look at their budget or their actual spending. It's like, okay, you don't have money to travel, but you're spending $1,000 a month eating out. How about you cut that down a little bit and reallocate your funds? It's like, oh, I don't have enough money to travel, but you're spending $750 a month on a car. Like, of course you don't got no money to travel. You just need to look, you're trying to look cute while you're riding around town. And so it's really also stopping and looking at your priorities versus where you're actually putting your energy. You're putting your energy into wasting money on a daily basis instead of putting that energy into supporting your bigger goals. And I think that's the issue for a lot of people.
That is so, that point is so good. I hear people, because I like to travel, and people ask me, oh my God, how do you get to travel? But I'm also a homebody, so I don't eat out much. I don't go to happy hours much. So those happy hours are what's in my travel budget. So definitely. And I also tried not eating out for the whole month of January. Amazing.
How'd that go? I can never do that.
You know what? Honestly, I'm going to write a blog post about it. But I said, let me try not eating out for a month. And also it's cold, so I want to just focus. And it also gave me more time to focus on my business. I found myself being able to get creative, saying no to things that didn't matter. Like, people want to come out for coffee, have a chat. I'm not having a chat. But I also found myself investing my money in other areas. So buying a course that, I was interested in attending versus going out to eat, and cooking at home, more energized. I could see what I'm putting in my food. So it was a good experience, but I wanted a burger and fries after a month.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's wow. More power to you. I don't know if I could do it.
It was hard. It was a little hard. But so what are some of your favorite tools that you feel that people can use to improve their finances that are readily available?
So I love, I love mint.com. I think it's a great tool. In addition to Mint, so Mint is really for like budgeting and just kind of looking at your money and seeing where it's going. Another great tool is Personal Capital, which does a similar thing. Another good tool for budgeting is software called You Need a Budget. I always like to recommend a couple because there's no one size fits all when it comes to your finances. You really need to just kind of test them all out and see what works for you, because some people will love one thing and not love another, So those are great for just budgeting. As far as credit, Credit Sesame, Credit Karma, Credit.com are all amazing. I'm trying to think what else. For investing, I love Acorns. Stash is great. I mean, there's so many different ones, just kind of depending on what area of your finances you need to tackle. But I think Mint and Personal Capital are a great place to start, to get your credit score, to see where your money's going, see how, to really get a complete snapshot of your financial situation.
Definitely. All great resources. Thank you. I'll definitely link these in the show notes so that people can have access. And I did want to ask, what are your thoughts on when people are paying like for homes or cars for like cash? What are your thoughts on that? Should they make payment plans or should they outright pay for these big purchases cash?
I guess it really just depends on your financial situation, like your overall financial situation and how much cash you have on hand, tax benefits, things like that all come into play. So it's kind of hard to say, but for some people, like I had a friend, he just bought a Jaguar and he paid cash just because, he's cash richer than credit. So his credit wasn't that good. And he's like, well, I got tons of, I got a couple $100,000 in cash. I'll just pay for the cash. So it just kind of depends. I think, especially, to borrow money, it costs a lot of money to borrow money, so you buy a $30,000 car. When it's all said and done, you've probably paid closer to 40 or 45,000, and so I think you kind of have to, it just depends on your situation, and you kind of have to see what works for you. But I don't think you should ever take all your cash and buy anything if you're going to be broke after. So that's just my kind of philosophy there.
Great point. So, Dominique, this has been amazing. And I want to know, so say if I was someone coming to you with a financial situation and ready to get my finances in order, what would it be like, the process be for working with you?
Yeah, so we still take some one-on-one clients. We're slowly dwindling, but we'll continue to take some probably throughout the rest of the year. But initially, it's that initial financial call. Initial discovery call, which takes about 15 minutes. We get a complete overview of your finances. And from there, we're kind of recommending which of our services would be best for you, which could be like our new mastermind that's launching the next coming weeks, or it could be, that you need that one-on-one guidance. So that's pretty much how the process starts. From there, it's just really getting a complete view of your finances and of your budgeting and your income and your expenses. And that's really where it has to start, so we can kind of figure out what you have to actually put towards your bigger goals. So that's really kind of what that process looks like.
Definitely. And I know you have a couple of programs. If you could just talk about like Finances Demystified and also the Social Money Movement and the upcoming masterclass that you have.
Yeah. So we have our we have our Finances Demystified Bootcamp, which is a 5-week program where we're basically tackling probably almost every aspect of your finances, and that's really more of a kind of self-study, do at your own pace type of thing. But you still get financial coaching during the program. We have our Managing Your Money and Making More as an entrepreneur class that you can just access online. And then we also have our new program, which is going to be the Millennial Wealth Builders, which is actually a Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. But we're going to be launching the Millennial Wealth Builders Mastermind, which will be more of a, coaching, accountability, helping you and staying on top of you to make sure you reach your financial goals. So that's really kind of the main programs we have in place right now.
Amazing. And, looking at all the great things that you've been able to do, the accomplishments, the features, what is something that you're most proud of throughout this whole process?
I think that the thing I'm probably most proud of is the amount of people I've actually been able to help. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, when you start when you're an entrepreneur, you basically come up with something out of thin air and hope that somebody will buy something from you or receive what you're putting out. And so not only have I been able to do that, but I think just the thousands of people I've been able to help, and like the emails I get, or if I'm in a speaking engagement and someone's like, you said this, I was in a speaking engagement a couple weeks ago, and this lady came to me and she's like, you probably don't remember me. Like, you spoke at this workshop 2 years ago. You told me to do like a few things, and it actually paid for like my son to go to my son's first 2 years of college. And I was just like, what? Like, that was just like, wow, stuff like that makes it all worthwhile. So I think those are like the things that I'm most proud of.
So you got to work with Dominique to find out what was it that she gave.
I'm still trying to figure out. I was like, what did I tell you to do? But you give so much advice. I'm like, I didn't remember that lady. I do remember the event that she said that I was at, but that I spoke at. But I'm like, tell me, what did I say? But also too, I mean, God speaks to you sometimes too and tells you what certain people need to hear, and that's something I value as well. Is letting him speak through me when I do various speaking engagements. So
definitely. And what do you feel that makes you, unique, or what tools and skills do you feel like has propelled you to be the person you are today?
I would say probably my faith in God, my family, my own personal life experiences, and just really being or acting on my purpose. You know what I mean? This is not a career that I ever thought I was going to be in. I mean, as far as the company that I have now, the lifestyle I have now, I never really imagined this is what I would have. And so I think that all those things combined has really just helped me, I guess has helped to make me unique.
Right. Which leads into my 5 questions before we head out. So the first one is, what advice would you give your 23-year-old self?
I would probably tell myself that, like, it's not that serious. Like, nothing that you're going through is as serious as you're making it seem. But I will also tell myself that everything's going to work out, and that, you know, I guess that everything's going to work out, and you can make plans, but just because they don't work out when you want them to work out doesn't mean that they're not going to happen. I think that's probably the biggest thing I had to learn there. So that's probably definitely what I would tell myself.
Definitely. And your favorite weekend activity?
Brunch. Brunch. And I love traveling. So brunch abroad, but just brunch and just brunch.
Okay. And what's the last item you splurged on?
I would say, oh, you know what? This is going to sound really random, but AirPods. I really wanted some AirPods, and they were like $170. And I don't know. I felt like that was a lot of money for some headphones. But
which is the AirPods, though? Which one is that? The little white ones?
The little white ones that are in your ears. They're wireless.
So weird.
That was my last splurge. And so I just got back from Iceland. I don't really consider Iceland a splurge, but I think when I was in Iceland, I just and I was in the plane, and everyone had like these these AirPods, and I'm like struggling trying to unravel the cords, and I was like, I'm over this. So I got back home, and I was like, I'm buying me some AirPods, and I'm cheap, so that was a splurge for me. And I know it's not a lot of money to a lot of people, but for me, it wasn't a lot of money. It was like, this ain't nothing I necessarily need, but now that I have them, I'm like, I don't know how I was living before. I'm like,
They always look so weird to me, but I see a lot of, I'm assuming they're really good because I see people with them. Like, they're just sticking out like Q-tips.
Literally, that's what it looks like. But honestly, it's changed my life. Game changer.
AirPods. And I definitely have to follow up on information on Iceland because that is on the bucket list.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely visit it. It's awesome.
Yes. And what would be something that people would be surprised to know about you?
I don't know. Probably. I really don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
Next question.
Yeah, probably that I am. I'm an ambivert, which is like an introverted extrovert. And believe it or not, despite my social media, like if I didn't have this company, I would probably never be on social media at all. So
definitely, you're popping on social, well, in real life, but I love your social media.
Thank you.
So yes, which leads into, before we wrap up, can you please tell people how they can find out more about you, contact you, and how we can continue to support what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm super easy to find. Website is just DominiqueBroadway.com. I probably spend most of my time on Instagram, so that's just Dominique Broadway. And yeah, definitely also make sure you join our free Facebook group, which is Millennial Wealth Builders.
And of course, you can follow us everywhere at Black to Business on all social media. And please continue to rate and subscribe so we can continue to have amazing guests like Dominique. I learned so much for today. So thank you so much for joining us, Dominique. I really appreciate you
for having me.
Of course. And until next time.